Hey there, sports history fans. This is Darren Hayes of the Pigskin Dispatch podcast, here to tell you about a new way to play fantasy football this upcoming season. Tailgate Fantasy Sports is a game you've been waiting for. It's a new type of fantasy football that's totally free and easy to play. Just sign up with your email, pick your favorite NFL team, and set a 3-man lineup using only players from your team. Rotate 2 players each week and add power-ups to boost your player scores. Best part? 1 random power up drops every week. Now, don't replace your existing leagues. In fact, there might be the way to get some of your favorite players on your team, because we all know how hard it is to get your own hometown team's players in your home league. That is if you truly follow some semblance of ADP. I think we've all experienced that one before. Get all the rules for TailgateFantasySports.com, but the real action happens at TailgateFantasy.io. Tailgate Fantasy Sports, where the true fans rule the game. Join now and help us all put the word fan back into fantasy football. Background music courtesy Wikimedia Commons from the United States Air Force of the West Band.
Hello, this is Ross Bliley from the podcast Pigskin Tales. This podcast is sponsored by Sterling Soap Company. With products sold throughout 41 locations around the globe, Sterling Soap Company has a unique assortment of products to choose from for your loved one for the holidays. Handmade artisan soaps created by Roderick and Amanda Lovin since 2012, these products are affordable and provide great value. Act now and save on your shipping costs. If you purchase $75 or more, your shipping cost is free in the United States. Shop now online at sterlingsoap.com.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
Okay, hello, welcome to another edition of Yesterday Sports on the Sports History Network. Today I'm here once again with my friend Dave DePaola. Those of you who have listened to the show know that I've had Dave on as a guest numerous times. Today we have another guest, Joe Zagorski, and Joe is joining us today. Joe also has his own show on the Sports History Network. What is your show called again, Joe?
Pro Football in the 1970s.
Pro Football in the 1970s, and Joe has written, 3, 4 books?
Well, right now I've written 6. 5 that have been published, and the 6th one hopefully be published before the end of the year.
Excellent. I do have I read your one book about the, I don't know if that was your first book, the one about the 1970s?
Yeah, that was the first one.
Yep, I read that one. Thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks. That was it took me 6 years to write the darn thing.
Wow.
Joe, what prompted you to write a book on Willie Lanier? I mean, he's a great player. I've met him several times at the Hall of Fame where actually, by sight, he used to recognize me and my friend. We were going so many times, and he was always there. And after he had the little lounge afterwards, and we would see him in there, and he would nod his head, and he would talk to us. But that was, being from Pennsylvania. How did you write? What came to how'd you come about writing about Willie Lanier?
It's a long story, actually. I believe that was my 3rd book, right? Yeah, and a friend of mine at NFL Films, his publisher wanted to know if I was interested in writing a biography. And I thought about different NFL players, and I had heard stories about Willie Lanier being a good subject to write about. So I thought, well, okay, why don't I propose an idea of writing about Willie Lanier, one of the first African-American middle linebackers. And they liked the idea. And so, I signed the contract, and stupidly, I didn't talk to Mr. Lanier first, and he was against it. So that didn't turn out so well. It's not one of my better selling books because I had to rely on a whole bunch of different public stories and articles and books and things like that to get quotes from him. So, but, I mean, you learn as you go along.
Yeah.
Yep.
I wonder why he was against it. That's maybe, I don't know. You wonder why though. But it was that's a good thing to write on. I mean, he was a great player. He was, he was tremendous. And like you said, the first African American middle linebacker. Well, they used to say the thinking man's position and everything. But so it's a nice tribute to him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I asked him 3 different times, and I even offered to pay him for 20 minutes of his time to ask him different questions, and he turned me down. And then, from what I understand, he got upset because I did write the book. So that's life,
No. How about the book on? That's an interesting one too, about the return of the Packers. That's a good subject. That was pretty good.
Yeah, I like that book. I got a chance to interview a lot of good players for the Packers for that book, and it was about a team that I was curious about and I was interested in because they had a pretty unique story. They had a head coach at that time, Dan Devine, and he wasn't what you would call a player's coach. He was difficult for them to deal with, but they still managed to win a division title. It was the only year in the 70s that they won a division title, and so that was a unique book to write. I kind of, in retrospect, wish that I had found a different publisher for it, but I was young and naive, and I didn't know what I was doing. And now I'm old and naive, and I don't know what I'm doing.
I mean, no, it's an interesting subject because they were, kind of out of the loop there for 4 or 5 years, maybe, when you wrote that book. What year did they come back? I'm sorry, 80, what was that season about?
72.
Okay, so they were, they won in 68 and 67. I mean, so about 5 years, yeah.
Oh yeah, they thought everything was good after that 10-4 season in 72, but it didn't last.
No. I remember that team with John Brockington and MacArthur Lane. They had a very explosive running game, but not much of a passing game.
No. Now, you guys were telling me that you wanted to talk about the 1978 rule changes. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
I prepared some notes. Hope you don't mind.
No, Go ahead, Joe. Go.
But 1978 was a watershed year in the NFL. I don't know if you guys realize that or not, but a lot of things happened.
Oh, yeah. Big changes.
The NFL went to a 16-game schedule. They added an extra playoff team in each conference. The roster sizes increased from 43 to 45. Now, coaches at that time were upset because they had 2 fewer preseason games in which to judge their talent. But the league also signed a new TV contract with the 3 major networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS. So the league was growing a lot. But there were a total of 12 different rule changes in 78. Now, most of them I don't even remember. But some of them, we still think about today. Like, did you know that in 78, tearaway jerseys were outlawed? True.
No, I don't remember that.
And, also in 78, a tipped ball could in 78,
right.
from 78 be tipped by anybody and caught
That's
by
right.
anybody.
Yeah.
The 2 big rule changes were that they were revolutionary, to be honest with you. The 5-yard chuck rule, otherwise known as the Mel Blount rule, where cornerbacks weren't allowed to hit a receiver after they ran 5 yards past the line of scrimmage. That opened up the passing game exponentially. But another rule which was kind of similar to it, at the line of scrimmage, meant that the offensive linemen were allowed from 78 on to extend their arms to pass block. They didn't have to keep them in anymore. They could extend them. And they could grasp the jerseys of the defensive linemen. That was really what you might want to call legalized holding.
Yeah,
That's right.
That's what the defensive players called it.
And the outcomes of those two rules were really incredible. It was like day and night. From 77 to 78, it was almost like you were watching a totally different game, because the game was primarily a runner's game up until 78, and then from 78 on, it became a passer's game. Take one person, Steve Largent, wide receiver, Seattle. Remember him?
Yeah.
In 77, he caught 33 passes for 643 yards. Nothing to write home about, really. But in 78, he caught 71 passes for 1,168 yards. That led the AFC. All because, well, I mean, Largent's a great receiver, but that extra yard, I mean, they had extra freedom in the defensive backfield with the world.
Yeah.
And he wasn't the only one. A lot of receivers increased their statistics.
That's right.
And I suspect their salaries, too, after that, demanding more pay.
I got some quarterback stats, Joe, on those on the yardage, passing yards. In 1977, there were no passers with 3,000 or 4,000 yards. There was 11 with 2,000 yards. 1978, 5 with 3,000 yards appeared. In 1979, 1, Dan Fouts with 4,000, 10 with 3,000, and in 1980, 2 with 4,000, 14 with 3,000. So you could see it taking off right there.
Oh, yeah. Football is kind of like an ebb and flow, point and counterpoint. Defense catches up. Offense tries to, but the defense has never really caught up to the 78 rule changes. It really hasn't. Just watch pro football today. It's a track meet.
Yep. Totally different game.
I didn't know.
It turned a lot of people off, too, I think.
Turned me off.
I didn't know this. No,
but go ahead, David. Go ahead.
Did you know? I didn't know this. The NFL became concerned after the WFL claimed they were going to form a league, and it was going to be more offensive friendly. They became concerned about viewership, and so there were some rule changes in the 70s. Not 78, like you talked about. In 1972, they moved the hash marks, and that doubled the number of guys that rushed for 1,000 yards. It doubled from 5 to 10, but they didn't understand this. It actually harmed a little the passing game. They claimed that the passing game suffered because when they moved the hash marks and the defenses were able to adjust easier, and they were able to prepare for teams' offensive strategy better, and they didn't have to prepare for this lopsided field in so much as, a strong side and, even things off a little bit. They weren't prepared for that. And then they tried to offset it by making more rules in 1974 about the goalposts. Remember, they moved the goalposts back 10 yards. And they did other things to try to emphasize more touchdown scoring instead of field goals, because they were kicking field goals. And they said, we'll move. If they miss a field goal, we'll put the ball at the line of scrimmage. That might prevent them from kicking more field. And they tried all these things to get more offensive stuff into the system. That was the first stuff right there, really.
The rules committee was faced with a conundrum of their own making. They really tried to finagle with too many different things, and they weren't willing to have the patience to see how things would meter out. They wanted to try and change things too quickly, like really quickly, like every single year. And
Right.
it got to the point where we are today, where pro football today, you don't know what. I mean, look at the kickoffs today. You know,
Yep.
we will never see a kickoff again, a real kickoff.
A kickoff return, right?
You won't.
Yep.
And I know the commissioner wants these safety conscious, and I understand that. But there's a point to where you're messing with too much of the game, and it becomes, like a lot of people have said, we're on the road to flag football.
Yep. I think one of the most exciting plays in football was the kickoff return. And 1974, they moved the kickoff from the 40-yard line to the 35-yard line to encourage more, because a lot, the kickers were getting better, stronger legs, so a lot of the kickoffs were going into the end zone, and they were losing the kickoff return. So at that time, 1974, they wanted to encourage more kickoff returns, and now it's the opposite.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And today it's all about safety. You've got those specialized helmets that look so foolish. They're called, guardian caps.
Right.
I'm sorry. It really looks it looks obscene to me, and I almost can't watch it. To the point if you're going to keep, I understand it's for safety. And I understand that CTE is a big problem, but it just looks hideous.
Yeah.
There's got to be better construction of a helmet on the inside of a helmet to make it better. I think
They're a product of their own promotions. Like, in other words, not promotions. That's the wrong word. They're a product of. When people go, oh, the game has changed, the players are bigger, stronger, faster. That's the problem. The problem is guys were started taking steroids, really took off, I think, probably in the 70s.
Oh, yeah.
To gain an advantage. And I'm not saying steroids, but don't tell me these guys aren't on stuff today, because they're on. You see them when they retire. They look completely different within sometimes less than a year. You're like, that's him? And so you want these guys to be faster, bigger, stronger. It's exciting. But in the meantime, they're causing more injuries. They're causing harder collisions. And so you become a product of like what you pushed. You wanted to push these things. And now the feedback was, when the players got hip to all that stuff, hey, we're having a lot of injuries. Otherwise, the NFL, who knows if they would ever even have addressed it. I don't have a lot of respect for Goodell, believe me. He's not one of my favorite people. And I think he's a phony.
In the 70s, steroids was legal. You could take them, legally. And they did. I interviewed Phil Villapiano once for the Oakland Raiders. And, of course, the Raiders had a big rivalry with the Steelers back then. And there was a player for the Steelers who was a tight end. And he was a tall and thin tight end, and he started taking steroids. And eventually, they had to move him to offensive tackle because
Brown?
Because
I remember.
So
I remember his build, his size, arms, and everything. And I said, this guy's on something.
And I thought, man, so I wanted to verify that. So I looked at some old programs, and I saw that Villapiano was right. His height and his weight was one thing one year, and it got bigger in several successive years. And thinking, wow, he was right about that. So it makes you wonder, if steroids were disallowed back in the 70s, what would have happened? Would more guys still be alive today?
Yeah,
that's it. Listen. Tony Dorsett said after Super Bowl 13, I don't know what those guys are on, he said, but we got to get some of that. So these guys were hip to it. I mean, that's a fact. He actually talked about it one time. He was at a show, and he talked to me about it. But it's just, And so now that's what happens. Like you said, Mark, in 1974, they changed that kickoff rule. They also changed punt. They also changed the punting rule where you couldn't leave until the ball was kicked. So they were hoping for better returns. They were trying to get all this stuff going. You know, they changed the holding and they changed the tripping and they changed a couple other things from a 15-yard penalty to a 10-yard penalty so that offenses weren't getting penalized that much. There was a lot of stuff going on in the 70s.
That 15-yard holding penalty destroyed a lot of offensive drives.
Right, exactly.
I mean, it's hard to come back from a 15-yard offensive holding penalty and maintain a drive. You just didn't see it that often. You're better, you know, instead of risking an interception, you're better off just punting. You know.
And that was
now it's. Go ahead, Mark.
No, I was just going to say that was Paul Brown pushed that rule a lot. The holding rule from 15 yards to 10 yards. He made that point that you're making, Joe. That really one holding penalty could just destroy your whole drive. So Paul Brown really pushed for that rule.
And you know, speaking of rules and rule makers, Don Shula, the head coach of the Dolphins, was on the competition committee. He he resisted the new offensive rules in '78. He really didn't want them. But there were so many fans back then. I wasn't among them, but there were so many fans back then that were clamoring for more scoring, that Don Shula finally gave up. He relented. And now look at it.
Yeah.
You got games, you got 45 to 41 games several times every Sunday. I mean, there's no defense. And don't get me started on tackling. We can't tackle anymore. You can't horse collar. You can't
do anything.
You can't
You
can't
can't do anything.
How about practice, Joe? How about practicing? They can only practice so many hours a day. You can't have this. You can't have doubles. Pads. You could only be in pads for so many. How about all that stuff?
The thing that gets me, and I saw it last week watching a Canadian Football League game, the defenseless receiver rule. Holy cow.
Yeah.
You would have never seen that in the 70s.
No. Now it's like the defender has to step away and say, "Oh, go ahead, please. I don't want to get in your way. Go ahead, catch the ball." They can't do anything. It's just
it's not as entertaining as it used to be, unfortunately.
No, not even close. I
still look forward to watching it, but I'm leaning a lot more towards the college football than I am pro football in this day and age, with the exception of one rule: targeting.
Right.
I'm sorry. You're basically telling a defensive player, like you said, Mark, go ahead, make the catch. I'll hold on to you and hope maybe one of my teammates will help.
Yeah.
Not only, Mark, did they try to change the rules, and Joe, the offense, they wanted the scoring, the exciting, more. They actually did a study, by the way, where they saw a rise in fan attendance as the scoring went up. I wrote it down here somewhere. I could find it in a minute. But my other point was they wanted to create parity. They wanted, if you look at the first 20 Super Bowls, only 5 of them were really competitive as far as the score. The other 15 games were not very exciting games. The first 20 Super Bowls. And really only Super Bowl 5, believe it or not, even though there's a lot of mistakes. Super Bowls 10 and 13, the 2 Cowboys-Steelers Super Bowls. 14 actually became pretty good because the Bengals caught up. And then you had Super Bowl 23. All those other Super Bowls were routes.
Yeah.
And it really didn't get until, I think, really around the 2000 era where the games started to become close. There was still a lot of blowouts, and, the games were never, people were complaining, the games are never good. And I think that had a lot to do with stuff. They were trying to make everything even. That's another thing they tampered with.
That's what I think Roselle was dragged along kicking and screaming with, was the idea of parity. People were getting tired of seeing the same 2 or 3 teams in the Super Bowl year after year after year. And you would have like the Cowboys, the 49ers, the Redskins, back then they were the Redskins, the Steelers, 4 or 5, maybe 6 teams, and that was it. The rest of the league, have a nice Christmas,
Yeah.
But and so they wanted more teams to have an opportunity to at least be competitive later in the year.
Right.
And that's what we're faced with even today. You'll see Cinderella teams show up today thanks to the parity that we saw, I guess, in the 80s.
Yeah.
Than anything else.
And the expansion of the playoffs, it's like half the league gets in the playoffs now. And up until I think it was 1978, like you said, there was only 4 teams from each conference. 4 teams from the NFC, 4 teams from the AFC. That was it. Made the playoffs. And before that, it was even less.
Yeah. I could see going to 5 per conference like I did in '78.
Right.
But now I don't even know how many there is now. What is it?
Oh, it's I can't even keep track. And now there's 4 divisions in each conference, so you could win your division easily with 8 and I don't even know how many games do they play now. 17. You win your division 9 and 8. You could easily win your division if you only have to beat out 3 teams, and if those 3 teams aren't any good, you just wrapped up your division easily.
I think there's 3 wild card teams. I think.
Good.
I'm not even sure.
Too much.
Well, look at. I mean, my favorite team is the Saints. So we lose every year. It's part of our DNA. But in the NFC South, you got Tampa Bay and everybody else. Nobody else is going to win that division. Tampa Bay is going to win it by default, and they'll maybe get 9 wins, but they'll still have plenty to win the division. And when they get into the playoffs, they get hammered.
Yep.
How'd you become a Saints fan, Joe?
Long story. I had a friend of mine who was a sergeant in the Army, who was a good friend of mine, and he was a diehard Saints fan, and I really liked him. He was a good guy. He always treated me well, and I just liked him so much that I felt really happy when the Saints finally won a Super Bowl for him, for his team. And he lost his entire house with Hurricane Katrina, and he rebuilt it right where the spot where his house was demolished. And I had a lot of respect for him. So I kind of started liking the Saints. And then when I was writing some articles and I needed some help from their PR department, they were more than willing to help me out. So I thought, you know what, I think I'm going to be a Saints fan. And from now on, I'm going to be a loser just like them. So I've gotten used to losing, but that's life,
Yeah, they got some talented guys there, though. The Saints, they got some players.
Doesn't matter. They've got terrible coaching. They've got a terrible GM. Their owner, Gail Benson, she doesn't know what she's doing. And, it runs from the top to the bottom. Eventually, you're going to start losing.
Yeah.
We have an offensive lineman. I won't say his name, but he went to the banquet circuit after the season, and he was a guest of honor. And people asked him to make him feel at home, and so people at the banquet threw their napkins down and moved their chairs back 10 yards.
That's a good one. I like that.
It's so bad that and I could see it early as preseason, and they won 5 games last year, and they probably should have only won 4. It's the same thing every year. I don't get my hopes up, so I more or less watch the other, and we have the results of it now. The Saints are one of only 2 teams, I think the Browns are the other, that are not on prime time this year. Not once.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Which is that's just as well, though, because they're going to lose anyway.
Joe, when you look at the 60s and you look at the 70s, because they say that football really, a lot of it took off in the 60s. There was a breakout, and there was the merger at the end of the 60s, and AFL was exciting and all this stuff. But when you look at football, do you think, because that's why I asked your age before, because we're all about the same age, do you think that we think the 70s was the most important because that was our thing, or do you just think because of the Monday Night Football and the rule changes that it was inevitable with the evolution? The 70s was more important than the 60s.
I think that more things happened in the 70s than in the 60s. I think there were more household names in the 70s than there were in the 60s. It just took off more in the 70s than anything else. Like we were talking about all the rule changes. Talk to me about rule changes in the 60s. I don't know too many of them, but I know a lot about the 70s rule changes. And then you've got, of course, Monday Night Football. That began in the 70s.
Yeah.
That took off. And then you've got, famous players today. I mean, back then, that we still talk about today. Joe Namath, Fran Tarkenton, Roger Staubach, Joe Green, Larry Zonka. And Joe Namath is still doing commercials. We're talking 50 years later. 50 years from now, do you think that Dak Prescott is going to be doing commercials? I don't.
No, of course not.
I just think it was in the 70s. There was just so much going on all at the same time that it was just the best decade.
Yeah, I think the merger,
you think
the merger and the Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
Right?
Two big things right there.
The merger and Monday Night Football, it just took off, and then, like you said, the rule changes and the attendance went way up.
When you guys think of Monday Night Football, without having to look at something or have somebody to remind you of something, does a certain game or a couple of games come to mind, just boom, they pop right in your head from the 70s, or no?
Well, one thing that comes to my mind with Monday Night Football is the Oakland Raiders. They lost. I think they played 15 games and they lost 1 on Monday Night Football. And that was during the era when you started to see, hey, we're not getting the ratings when we have a Chargers Cardinals game.
Right.
But we are getting the ratings when we have a Cowboys Redskins game on Monday Night Football. So you started to see the schedule makers, hey, let's get these good teams in on prime time.
Right.
Yeah.
And you had Howard Cosell and the announcers. I think a lot of people, when you mention Monday Night Football, they immediately think of the announcers. Don Meredith, Frank Gifford, Howard Cosell.
Yeah, well, it was, and then let's face it, in the 70s, when you're competing against pro football on a Monday night, what are you going to have in the 1970s prior to cable television to watch? Not much.
All right.
So you had to, and you only had three channels, really, ABC, CBS, and NBC. So, we're going to watch football.
We got a lot of New York channels here in Connecticut. We had a really good antenna my father had in the house. But when you guys talk about Monday Night Football, Joe, I've heard you on other shows talk about, what kid didn't watch Monday Night Football, or when it was somebody's trying to tell you to go to bed. My father was pretty good about it. He would let me go in the room, and as long as I got good grades, which I always did, and I was always a late night kid. I always stayed up late. As long as I wasn't making a big scene or anything, he let me watch those games on that 13-inch black and white TV. At halftime, he'd say, "Go hit the rack." That was his thing, hit the rack, and I'd go and I'd have the TV. But there's two games that stand out: the Cowboys getting lambasted, 38-0, and the Walt Garrison game when he got stopped on the goal line on that pass. It was a Redskin Cowboy game. Harvey Martin talks about that game, saying it was one of the most brutal, hard-hitting games he ever played. I think he was a rookie that year. And Walt Garrison was tough. He was a tough guy. He was a bull runner, and he didn't get a chance to get any momentum. What's his name? Houston stopped him right in his tracks, and that was it. What a game that! I remember watching that game like it was yesterday.
All right,
I couldn't sleep. I couldn't sleep after that. I could not sleep. I think I got maybe 2 hours sleep. I just couldn't get over that. Tossing and turning all night long.
I'm going to prove my point to you guys with this next question. How many Monday Night Football games from last year do you remember?
Zero.
Zero.
And I play fantasy football.
Here you guys are remembering games from 50 years ago on Monday Night Football. That tells you everything you need to know.
That's right.
Yeah, no, you're right. I remember an 83, I'm sorry, Joe, an 83 game where I think it was Joe Theismann's birthday, and the Redskins were killing the Cowboys, I think. And the Cowboys came back. It might not have been this, but there was one where it was Theismann's birthday, and the whole stadium started singing to him, happy birthday. I think he threw 4 picks or something. And then there was another one, the Cowboys were getting killed at halftime, and then they came back in the second half. Tony Hill had a couple of catches, but those were 80s games, and those I can remember those like it was yesterday, really.
I remember when Lawrence Taylor wishbone Theismann's leg and cracked it in half, and of course, the bone was sticking through the skin.
Oh,
that was disgusting.
That was hard to watch.
Oh yeah, and I don't remember, but I think they showed it more than once on replay.
Yeah, they gave a warning.
Listen, it's tough to watch now. Joe, you did a special on a book that you wrote on Bill Bradley.
Yeah.
And he's kind of a free spirit. He reminded me of another guy that played with the Eagles. I don't know if you ever encountered this guy, but we heard stories about him when we were young kids. And we used to talk about it, so I looked him up. But you remember Tim Rosevich?
Yeah.
He's something about he jumped into a birthday cake with no clothes on or something. Crazy stuff like that we used to hear when we were kids.
If you want to read about crazy football stories, read the book on Bill Bradley.
Right.
He told me this one story about you remember Conrad Dobler of the Cardinals, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Supposedly
Nasty.
the dirtiest player ever.
Nasty Conrad.
One day, Bill Bradley tried to get even with Conrad because Conrad, if the worst place any football player wanted to be was in a pile-up near Conrad Dobler. And Bill Bradley saw Conrad's arm on the ground after a tackle, and Bill wasn't part of the tackle, but he saw his arm there, and he knew that his arm was previously injured. So he thought, what the hell? So he jumped, and this is after the whistle. He jumped on top of it as hard as he could. And according to Bill, people in the second, third row of the stadium could hear Conrad screaming.
I bet they could.
And that was the game apparently where Jim Hannafin, assistant coach of the Cardinals, wanted to get Dobler and Jackie Smith and Dan Deerdorf together after the game to jump Bill Bradley as they were going into the tunnel to the locker room. And and Bill tells a story in the book, so I don't want to ruin it.
Yeah.
It's hilarious, and the stuff that Jim Hannafin was calling Bill Bradley from the sidelines. Well, it's not G-rated. Let me point
Right.
and say that. So
Yeah, he's quite a character. He that video you did with him where both of you were on. I think just audio for him, but you were on. It was very, very good. Very entertaining guy.
oh God, yeah, I mean, he was telling me this story of they have this nowadays in stadiums. They have statues of all these great players.
Yep.
Well, outside Veterans Stadium, there was a giant stadium of a kicker, just a random kicker. And Bill was teammates with Tom Dempsey at the time. And after a game some night, late one night, they decided, with a guy from the local union, I guess Carpenters Union, whatever, they decided to try and saw a foot off of the statue to resemble Tom Dempsey. And they almost got arrested. They almost got arrested for it. Bill talked them out of getting arrested if they reattached the half of the foot to the. So they called a welder in to reattach. I mean, it's great. If you like funny stories like that book's full of them. Bill is so funny.
I'll tell you.
Go ahead.
I looked up Tim Rosevich about some time ago because I said, whatever became of this guy, he was a better player than I thought. But when you look him up, you know what he comes up as? An American. Yes, American actor. It said next to his name. Well, you look into it, it mentions football, but when you look him up, American actor, unbelievable.
Yeah, he's no longer living, but he was funny as heck. And when Bill and Rosevich were basically they were holding out for more money in '72, they would they would try to avoid the media, but the media kept trying to find them. So they would go from bar to bar to bar to different people's apartments trying to hide from the media. And one day the media found out where they were at, and they both snuck out the back of some girl's apartment. It's incredible stories,
There was a practice got canceled one day for torrential rains. I guess it was bad flooding. And Rosevich takes a trainer's table and goes to use it as a surfboard. He's going down the street on this table. And he crazy stuff, biting the caps off of bottles and chewing on glass. Crazy things, this guy.
Yeah. It was that era. It was that time where, the Vietnam War was almost coming to an end, thankfully, and you started seeing guys saying, I don't want to say hippies, but in a way they kind of were. There is a free spirit that just permeated that whole era, and it was. We don't really. I guess we see it to an extent today, but today it's just still different.
Very different. Wasn't Steve Sable good buddies with Rosevich?
And Bradley.
Yeah, I think they even. I think he was even his roommate for a short time.
Yep.
He was,
Steve
Mark.
Sable. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And it was NFL films. That's another thing. I know it started in the '60s, but it really got good in the '70s.
Oh yeah, that's where you learn.
if you look, yeah, that's where you learn the game.
Yeah, you learned a lot of stuff.
If you watch those highlight films from the 70s today, they're still entertaining.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
You learned a lot of
Some
stuff
of the
from
stuff
watching
has
it.
been bleeped out. Some of it's been bleeped out because it's not politically correct. Deacon Jones talks about slapping, giving people a head slap. He says, talking about slapping like upside your woman. He said that's been bleeped out because it's not politically correct. And I have a lot of those recorded off of my I had a satellite dish, Joe, where I could get all kinds of stuff. And for years, I just taped everything, anything I could get my hands on. And I saved it all. And I eventually put them onto DVDs. I digitalized them. But there was a guy talking about baseball and football. And they said by 1965, I don't know if you guys agree with this, that football had overtaken baseball as the favorite American sport. By 1965, others say it was 1971 or 72. What do you guys think of that?
Possible. I don't know. In 1965, the only thing I was thinking about was the load in my diaper.
I mean, football cards became popular in the 70s, kind of. I mean, baseball cards were, they can't even really compete today, really, but you got to see a player's face without a helmet on, and you were able to catch some halftime highlights. As small as it was time-wise, the halftime highlights were huge. Think of how big that became. It was 2 or 3 plays from one of your favorite teams. And that's why my buddies and I looked at getting satellite dishes by the mid-'80s, because we said we're missing a lot of stuff. We were getting live feeds, Joe, with no commercials on games. They were phenomenal. The talking in between with the announcers, what they were talking about, what you could hear, all that, but all that stuff became, like you said, it got ramped up in the 70s.
Well, when you were a kid, when you came downstairs on Christmas morning, you might see an electric football game or talking football, NFL strategy. Did you see any of the baseball game? No. It was already happening.
Yeah, I think they're early set, like right after the merger. That's when it kind of started to overtake baseball in popularity. I think in the 60s, baseball was still probably more popular than football, but after the merger and Monday Night Football, it just took off.
You know, the electric football games.
Yeah, we all had those.
My players never went where I wanted them to go.
No.
Now look, 50 years later, and my players on the Saints, they don't go where I want them to go either.
The thing I remember about the Saints is, as a kid when they were not good, well, everybody knows about Archie Manning. But at the very end of his career, Doug Atkins was there. That guy was a force. He was just a very large man. And I saw him once, and I'm like, this guy's he was a mountain of a man. And he played many years, too. He was on this.
He was an actor, too. He was an actor, too. Did you know that?
I didn't know that, no.
Didn't know that.
He has a cameo role in the movie Breakheart Pass with Charles Bronson.
Didn't know that.
I remember the movie. I didn't know that.
Yeah. He's in that. Joe Kapp is in that movie. And I think one other guy. I can't remember his name. But they were all NFL players, yeah.
Maybe the guy that directed or produced it was a big NFL fan. I liked their uniforms, the Saints, back then with the 3 stripes. I thought that was a really sharp, with the black and gold. I thought that was a sharp uniform back then.
Now they look like crap. And
when they wear when they wear the same color pants, Joe, as the shirts and the pants are the same color, that's out.
Looks like they're wearing pajamas. They look like they're wearing pajamas.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
I hate it. I mean, and look, black is nice, but black on black, it's not appealing.
No.
I mean.
1970s, You can't beat those uniforms. Those were the best
No.
uniforms.
Without a doubt.
All through the
It's not
1970s.
It got too commercialized, and of course,
Yeah.
you mentioned Roger Goodell. It's all about the money now. So it's
Yeah.
and every team now has like 4 different uniforms.
Yeah.
It's
Same thing in baseball. Same thing in baseball, too.
Oh, they're terrible.
Every team's got 3 or 4 or 5 different uniforms.
yeah. Well,
Some
hey, guys,
of the more traditional teams, though, have kind of stuck to their guns. I got to admit, like the Giants, they didn't do much tinkering with that uniform. And even the Cowboys, they got that one they were for the bigger games, but they didn't change the color of the pants or, they didn't really change the helmet. The Saints, believe it or not, are supposedly this year are coming out with a white. It actually looked pretty nice, a little, just the helmet itself. It's white with the black trim around the gold, logo. It looked pretty, it did look nice, I got to say that.
they should just change that emblem from a fleur-de-lis to a big L.
All
Hey
right.
guys, I got to get going. But
Okay.
It's been great. It's been great chatting with
Been
you.
been a pleasure. My pleasure, Joe, meeting you.
Nice meeting you too, David. And of course, look forward to seeing more of your stuff down the road. Okay, guys.
Thanks for
You
coming
too,
on.
thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us.
No
and
problem. We'll see you on
okay.
down the road. All right. Bye-bye.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
He was a superstar, but Kareem Abdul-Jabbar never felt at home in Milwaukee. Jordan Tresky's new book explores why, while telling the incredible rise of the Bucks, going from an idea to NBA champions. It's history, it's basketball, it's real. Pick up your copy today at your favorite bookseller.